Hey guys, so today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite series by one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. So C.S. Lewis is most commonly known for the Chronicles of Narnia and for some of his nonfiction like Mere Christianity. And I have read all of that and I love that, but one of his works that I have loved and enjoyed the most is the Space Trilogy, which I honestly don't see a lot of people reading or talking about. And obviously I'm one person and I can't really change that, but if you're watching this video, I'm hoping that I can convince you to read the Space Trilogy because it is a very, very awesome trilogy and it's really unique. And anyways, I'm just gonna get started. So the first book in the Space Trilogy is Out of the Silent Planet, and I have a physical copy, but it's lost, so I can't show it to you. But Out of the Silent Planet starts with this man named Ransom who gets kidnapped and taken to space. They are en route to Mars, and Ransom has a growing suspicion that his kidnappers have really bad plans for him on Mars, which honestly, who's surprised? He got kidnapped. I don't really want to go on since a really fun part about Out of the Silent Planet is the fact that you are kind of figuring all this out with Ransom. That is a main part of the plot, so I'm not going to go any further in explaining it. So one of the parts I liked most about Out of the Silent Planet was the main character, Ransom. So Ransom is a philologist, which I think is a weird way to say a linguist. He is a professor and he's on this walking tour and then just suddenly gets kidnapped. So he is a very logical, rational person who is well educated, can quote philosophers and such, and is just being taken to space, and he's not sure what to make of this, but he's trying to do the best that he can to stay sane and figure out all that's going on. And so it was really interesting to kind of see everything through his eyes, and he's both curious and afraid and yet determined to do basically the best that he can, even though he's a pretty weak character, or he sees himself that way. Alright, next was the setting. So the setting is not in the slightest scientifically accurate, which is okay because this was written a long time ago. And it's not even necessarily science fiction accurate sort of thing. So C.S. Lewis was definitely a fantasy author, and this comes through in the Space Trilogy. But there was definitely a realism to the world building that he had. So he definitely paid attention to the effects of lower gravity and to light rays, although not necessarily in our modern understanding, but he definitely took these general science things into account, which made it more believable. But beyond that, the setting was interesting, and it also had a realism to it that was not based in science, but was based in just the way we like to look at the world. And it made a lot of sense, both in our way of looking things and in Ransom's philosophy. So Ransom had these preconceived notions of how the world was going to look once he got to Mars, and when he gets there, he discovers that that is all very different. So I'm just going to briefly mention the next two books of the Space Trilogy. Paralandra is the second book. It was my favorite. It's set on Venus, which is also known as Paralandra in the book. And the next one is, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name. It is set on Earth, also known as Thulkandra. Oh man, I can't remember the name. That Hideous Strength. So That Hideous Strength was definitely the darkest of the books in my opinion. Paralandra had a demon-possessed character, but it was okay in my opinion, and I'm sensitive to that. And That Hideous Strength also had demonic forces and was a bit scarier to me. However, in both of these books, I felt like there was really good perspectives on both of it, and it wasn't too overwhelming, especially not towards the end. The ending did good justice to all of the bad stuff that was in it, and I really felt like they were worth it, and there was good and beauty in all of it. So one of the main things I liked about the Space Trilogy overall, I guess, is just that it was a lot of epic world-changing stuff in strange ways, obviously. I mean, it's C.S. Lewis, he gets very philosophical. But it's also very simple, and you see it all from the perspective of these characters who aren't necessarily great warriors or necessarily high-minded theologians and philosophers. It's just ordinary people or ordinary random professors just kidnapped and taken to this other planet and caught up in the interplanetary politics almost in like the weirdest way. But that was one of the main points of the series, obviously, was that individualness, and God can use anyone, and it's important to do your best. Even if you're not somebody important, it's still important to do the right thing. And that was a really awesome part of the Space Trilogy. Alright, so that about wraps it up. So if you love C.S. Lewis or fantasy, or even if you love science fiction, I mean, this is definitely not a hard SF or even space opera, but it's definitely worth reading, especially if you love CS. Alright, I think that about wraps it up. So the Space Trilogy is definitely not a hard SF or even like space opera, but it's really good. And if you love fantasy, if you love C.S. Lewis, even if you like science fiction, I think that this is really worth reading. It's obscure, but a lot more people I think could enjoy it. So I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you so much for watching this video. I apologize for the bad lighting and framing. Sorry about that. I will plan to fix that next time, but thank you for watching. I plan to post more videos soon.